Appearing on a live stream.
Okay, I
This is
see the live. I
okay.
see the
There we
live
go.
icon. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, people,
All
we are this is the second time we're doing with Zoom live stream, so you got to bear with us. There we go. There we go. Just got to bear with us. I asked Travis. Now, Travis, you're gonna have to go over that again because it's a great explanation.
Okay.
I told the audience that that we saw on Tuesday. We saw Oppenheimer. My second time, your first. I asked if you were exhausted. Said yes, but you made a really good point. You said you read some interviews or some critiques, and one said it's too complicated. Do you agree with that?
I don't actually. I thought actually the complications to it, or what appears complicated because of the storytelling, where there's a lot of flashbacks and it's not told in chronological order. I think actually adds to the excitement of the movie, makes it much more intense. I think if he had just gone from his life from college up to, well, I think they go as far as, was it 19, somewhere in the 1960s or something, where he's getting an award. I think it probably would have been boring. Maybe, you could have done it in a more efficient manner and made it a shorter movie. But the layout, the way they put the story together, I thought it adds a degree of suspense to it. It adds, you get this intense energy, this sense of insecurity of what's going on, trying to figure this out. And it really, I think it creates a lot of the feelings that the characters would have going through the episodes that they're going through, if that makes sense. Because you get this intense feeling. Like I said, I was mentally worn out, always trying to think of what are all the angles here? Why is this important? And then seeing, you see a scene at the beginning and like 2 hours later, it's like, oh, it is important. That's why that's there. And like I said earlier, it reminds me of something like a jigsaw puzzle, where you kind of start out, and at first it's very confusing, but the more pieces you get put in, it does start to make sense, and you start to see the picture, and it does all come together at the end. Now, I'd say the complications to it really add, that's a big part of the entertainment value, is trying to figure out what's going on. Because I remember you said you actually found it less intense the second time that you'd seen it.
You know what's funny? You mentioned this about how complicated or non-complicated it was. You know what? I totally agree with you. The second time I saw it, I think it clarified just a couple of things, but nothing major. I mean, I think literally when I walked out of the first time, like you did, I got the entire gist of it. Now I say this because not Oppenheimer, Nolan's other movie is the one I love, Inception. Love Inception.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
I've watched that 3 times, and I'm still picking and plucking things out. I'm like, oh God. For the audience here, if you want to see a movie, oh man, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I've seen that movie probably 20 times, and I'm always at like the 20th time, I'm like, oh, I get the whole trick now.
It has layers to it. Yeah.
So many layers, so many. But this one is really, it's masterly, because when I left the first, I'm like, I get it. And I saw the second time with you. First of all, I did not leave exhausted at all. And he really ties everything up at the end. And the great thing is that third act, where it's kind of a mystery unfolding. Yes. Like you said, he answers so many things you had in your head, and it clarifies them. So I was just like, frankly, I don't think I need to see the movie a second time. The first time was amazing, exhausted, and I got 90% of it, which is amazing to me, because I'm usually a slow learner at movies.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And it seems like initially you think of this kind of movie, I thought, I got exhausted trying to keep track of characters and remembering details. But yeah, it adds like a roller coaster effect to the movie. I mean, mentally, you're really, to me, that was part of the entertainment, and I mean, the story is good. I don't want to take anything away from the story. The acting is excellent. I mean, these guys really came together and just put Gary Oldman playing Truman was just that was phenomenal. That's why the handkerchief there. That's one of my favorite scenes. But no, it was good. And it's one of those movies I kind of keep playing it in my mind as the way he exposes these people's character, their personalities, and you see that that wasn't just filler at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Because when you think about, well, why are they acting like that towards the end? And you start like, oh yeah, well, that scene before, there's indication, like I said, that shows these people the good, the bad, the ugly of them. And at the end, when a lot of them are trying to act very virtuous about not advancing in a nuclear arms race, it really leaves you wondering. And the film doesn't try to indicate it one way or the other, but there's enough information there. It leaves you wondering: is this really a matter of conscious on their part, or is it a matter of ego?
Yeah.
And the virtue signaling is just a way for them to try to remain relevant or self-important. That they bring that up in the beginning of the movie about being important and self-important. And this is a way that they can still try to remain self-important by trying to argue against what they had just created.
I mean, it's unlike modern art, which has absolutely no meaning and it's made to be totally ambiguous. This movie, like you said, it's I don't want to say, maybe it's kind of morally ambiguous, but it's because, like you said, is it ego? Is it because of real consciousness? But it creates a great story, and you and I are talking about it. I mean, we're still talking about it days after, and
because Nolan's letting the audience, he lets you connect the dots. He's letting you figure it out. I think that's far more effective storytelling than just shoving something down somebody's throat and say, okay, here it is. And there's nothing to think about. There's nothing to talk about. It's like, yeah, that was it. We know why. And sometimes movies like that they can be very fun. They can be exciting. They can be funny, whatever. But, you don't really, they're an escape. This one is an escape, but you also have to think. This is like an intellectual challenge. And it's, to me, I found it very mentally stimulating.
I can't remember who it was, but one guy who was giving some feedback, or you say his critique. He said, after I saw it, I had to go home and take a nap. I was like, yeah, I can totally see that. It was, you leave exhausted. I mean, it's, you're not just enjoying a movie. I mean, you're in it. And I don't know about you. A couple of scenes, especially when they're making the atom bomb, the Trinity test, I was white knuckling. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? I mean, what's going to happen, but it's like, oh man.
Well, yeah, he does a really good job, I think, of making you and the audience feel like what the characters would feel. Like you said, you feel like you're in the movie, almost like you're participating in the movie. You're not just observing it; you're participating in it. And no, it was exciting. It's one of the better movies I've seen in a long time.
Man, if you were Nolan and someone asked you, "Hey, would you teach me how to write scripts?" How much do you think he'd charge? $10 million bucks. Yeah. I'll make $1 billion on my movie. How about I charge you 1% of that?
Yeah, really. He could teach you, and how many people could still grasp it,
because he directs it too. He puts it all together. Oh man. I just, man, what a director. I mean, a thinking man's movie, but it's not obnoxiously thinking. I mean, it's about people. And I've heard you say it, for so many people say it, it's not about the atom bomb. That's just one small part. It's about the man.
It really is. I'd say not just the man, but about people.
Yes, people.
And I think, like, initially I was thinking, I'd like my take my boys to this. Actually, even and it is rated R, so there'd be some scenes you'd say probably aren't appropriate for kids. But even at that, there's something else I was thinking of. I think really you almost have to be, this is an adult movie, and not that it's not necessarily provocative, but it's dealing with, I think, a level of maturity and experience that you have to be an adult, I think, to fully appreciate. Totally. I've wondered, would I have enjoyed the movie as much at age 25? I don't think I would have at 20. I mean, because in order to relate to the characters, you really have to have been in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt said, and know what it's like to be competing, to have something you're really striving for, working for, working with others, but also competing with others. And in such an environment that even people that you're working with or that you are friends with, you still can't quite completely trust them because they're competing with you while they're also working with you. And to have people then trying to tear you down for the sake of tearing you down. I think anybody who's dealt with, the military, bureaucracy, government, these things where sometimes, you get taken out or you have people trying to assail your character, not because you're bad, but or not that you even have done bad work, but for some reason you're kind of in the way, and it behooves them to try to put you down, if that makes some sense.
Absolutely.
A lot of I'd say most young people probably haven't gone, or even young adults probably haven't gone through that. Like I said, I don't think I could have appreciated the movie as much at 25 as I could now.
Well, I remember years ago, I was actually on campus teaching American military history. And I told some students, like, hey, you should watch Zero Dark 30. I love that movie. Jessica Chastain, she chases, she's the part of the group, Alex Station, who based on general true story of how they found bin Laden. And some students after it said they watched it. And they're like, and if you remember at the end where they kill bin Laden, it's all over with. I mean, she's at the at one of the bases. She gets word, and she goes outside and she starts crying. And they say, why is she crying? Well, was she sad that bin Laden died? I'm like, it goes, what do you say? Like, as an adult, you're like, no, she's worked most of her life to get this done. People that she knew have died, tried to have this end, and now it's over with. It's all gone. She's just letting all those emotions. That's completely normal. But, 25 years old, I wouldn't know what the hell to think about that. But as an adult, you're like, oh, I get it. Like, oh my God, how invested she was emotionally and spiritually, psychologically to have this done. And now it's done.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
When something has been your life and then it's done. And like I said, with the young enough, a younger perspective, would they grasp that? I don't know. I'm not that young anymore. So maybe they would. But to me, like I said, I thought there are a lot of parts of it I could relate to, just because, I've been in that situation like that. Not building an atom bomb, of course, but you have people try to take you out, and it's not so much a matter of fact; it's a matter of accusation.
Yes.
When people will try to do things, as Oppenheimer's going through. And some of these other characters, and it's not even so much it's not about what they've done. It's just a matter of being in the way, or what's even more beneficial for somebody else in a political arena to knock them down. I think you could appreciate that a lot more if you've gone through similar instances like that.
Well, apparently, given the movie, even Oppenheimer, and I don't know how old he was during the movie, but being betrayed, stabbed in the back, even he did not appreciate how low people can go. So if the main character demonstrates he didn't understand it, let's say at 50 years old, I think you need some you need a mature audience. But I gotta tell you, the fact that the movie's making, it's made $200 million already on the 5th day. And wow. This is a 3-hour R-rated movie where it's just people talking. I mean, there's a bomb in there somewhere. It's not Barbie. It's people talking intellectually. So to me, that's a good sign, I think, right?
Yeah, I agree. I know, I would agree. Yeah. I normally would have thought there probably wouldn't be that much of an audience for something like this. Because like I said, it's an exciting movie. I don't know if fun would be the right word to describe it, but it's exciting. It is very intense. But like I said, you've got to it feels more. I remember telling you, I felt like, when you're trying to run with somebody that's faster than you and you're trying to keep up with them. It's like that. You can't quit. You can't drop out. And you feel like you're really struggling just to kind of keep up with the story. Like I said, a very enjoyable movie, but I know if I wouldn't call it like a fun or relaxing movie.
No, it's not relaxing. It's yeah, it's definitely intense. Even though before it started, I told you this is not a roller coaster going up, man. That's a full that's a train full speed ahead, and
I remember that's
you jump on it, and boy, and like we said, it doesn't let you go. You got to stay on it, and you're like all the stuff coming at you.
Yeah.
But then at the end, it all comes to the apex, to one end, and Nolan ties a knot. So hats off to Nolan. That's a great movie. Another great movie I mentioned to you and for the audience, Insomnia.
Oh yeah, I've not seen that one, but
Robin
good.
Williams and Al Pacino. What I got to tell you, of all the gosh, if you'd asked me what's better, Insomnia, Dark Knight, that's one with Heath Ledger, right? Dark Knight,
yeah,
and Inception, top three of his top. I don't know. I mean, Insomnia is just amazing. It's amazing. So not a bad movie. There's no it's a murder in there, but you don't see the murder. But it's about adult situations. Fantastic thriller. Another thing about people. Oh, highly recommended.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying Insomnia, but my 13-year-old son, Dark Knight is like one of his, and Inception, by the way, are like two of his favorite movies.
Oh.
So we since I like them, we end up watching those a lot.
Yeah, I think I read on the. I always used to read Ebert before he died. He had all these movie reviews that he would post online, and he had one Inception. And I learned from his review that I think Christopher Nolan, it took him 10 years to get that script done, which is I remember leaving the movie. I'm like, that's a complicated movie, but I got it. I'm like, that itself is great writing.
To have so many moving parts coming together at the end. I mean, that's hard to do. That's hard to do.
I remember the bus falling off the bridge, and then dream, and the bus keeps going slowly, second by second. I'm like, or millisecond by millisecond. I'm like, I get this. To me, that's great writing, and that's the kind of stuff that I would love to learn how to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That takes a lot of skill. Was it like Stephen King talked about in the movie The Stand, that had, or his book The Stand, that had so many moving parts and parallel stories. He found it like really complicated to write because of that. My second book, The Last Marine book too. I mean, I've also got like a lot of moving parts, parallel stories, all these characters that are merging into what's going to evolve into a riot in San Diego. And that was hard to do, trying to keep all these moving parts kind of like staying in step with each other to converge onto that one moment. That's hard. So no, my hats off to Nolan for this one, because this had a lot of moving parts to it.
Well, speaking of Stephen King's The Stand, in my opinion, highly overrated. I give it 3 out of 5. I finished that book. I'm like, really? Really? God, it's a huge book. Huge.
It is, yeah. And that was supposed to be one of his bigger books at the time. But
in the last 150 pages, it's like the climax has already happened. Now it's just a slow downhill. And I'm reading, like, what the hell am I missing here? And like, is this leading to something? Like, I don't need a cool down walk from here or stage from here. Like, oh God.
cool down from the read.
Yeah, I don't need that. You gotta cut that shit off when the guy died. Or Randall Flagg died.
Yeah, that's not one of my favorite books by him either. No, I think one of his best books, which coincidentally was the first one I read, was
Thinner?
Pet Sematary.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I really like his Richard Bachman books. I told you Thinner is also one of my favorites. And there's another one by Richard Bachman. The Running Man. I thought the Running Man was good too. Completely different story from the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Richard Dawson.
No Richard Dawson.
No Jesse Body Ventura.
It's it's a darker story than the movie is.
I have a Firestarter here. First of all, I like the movie with David Keith or Keith David.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
One of them is the bald black guy in the Thing, and the other one is a white dude with curly blonde hair. And their names are complete. Is it Keith David? Anyway, it's I actually like the movie, but the book, I think the book's one of his best, because I think I told you, remember how the main character has that mind control, you hear kadoom, kadoom, kadoom. He can make
Yeah.
people do things.
Mhm.
Well, in the book, he does. I mean, spoiler for anyone that haven't read a book in 40 years. Spoiler here. As he does his mind control, he's slowly getting his powers. But one of the guys, the guy who Martin Sheen plays in the movie, he's running the I think it's called the farm. He's running it, and the main character, the dad, starts doing the kadoom, 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 kadoom to him. And when he does it, if I remember right, Martin Sheen's character sees a snake simultaneously as it's happening. So he starts following orders, but now his perception, his mental cognitive ability is so screwed up that he sees snakes everywhere. Slowly it starts increasing as he's driving. You might see a snake on the steering wheel, or like the rope or a hose. It's a snake, and it gets bigger and it starts escalating, and it really, you can just tell how this one little fissure in his mind expands and gets worse and worse, and could lead to death. Some great writing.
Yeah, no, a lot of Stephen King stuff's good. I've not read some of his newer books, but his older books from the 70s and 80s, they hook you and just don't let you go. Or at least for me, I can read them. I think when I read Pet Sematary, I want to say I read it all like within a 48-hour period. I could, and then when I got done, I had to go for a walk. I couldn't just it left me with just kind of really like kind of an eerie feeling unsettled feeling afterwards.
Didn't he have that book in his drawer like for 4 years? He didn't want to publish it. It was too disturbing to him. I think his wife ultimately found it and forced him or compelled him to publish it. But if I remember right,
heard that. Yeah.
He had done it. And if you get a chance, I mean, I know Stephen King is something, he's different today. Michael Malice, one of my favorite guys, the anarchist. What do you say? He's America's maddest lesbian. That's what he calls Stephen King. He's just an irritable, I don't know what kind of man he is, but if you get a chance, go on YouTube and look at his interviews and his speaking from the 80s. And there's some really, really good stuff. There's one where he won an award for writing. It must have been the late 90s, I think. And it was a major award ceremony. It's like the Writers Award of the Nation or something like that. Big writers. And when he gives his speech, he talks about like half the people in the audience probably doesn't want him there because he doesn't write, the academic, highfalutin. He's like, I write pop.
Yeah.
But he really takes a stand for some of the smaller unknown writers. He's like, this is good stuff. This is stuff you should be writing. Not everything is is Ulysses or
No, a very valid point too.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, there's like we were talking about with like Oppenheimer. I mean, that's not a movie for everybody, I would say, and that's all right. It's not. I mean, I enjoyed the movie very much, but I enjoy other types of movies too. Same with books. I mean, not everything has to be like a literary classic. There's some that I've really enjoyed, some that I've thought were really bad. But and same with like genre novels or pulp fiction. Some of them are fun to read. There's a good story, and some of them are. So
there's one book I really want to read. I mean, Jen and I, we rented the movie. It must have been a year ago, probably just prior to Halloween. It's called The Devil Rides Again. I think, or Devil Rides Out, The Devil Rides Again. And there's a movie with Christopher Lee. I think it's made in the 60s. It is amazing. You talk about it. In fact, when the movie's over with, I was like, I don't think people would make this kind of movie today. It's about like a Christopher Lee and his friend are trying to rescue a woman, or maybe it's his friend from a underground cult of Satanists. They go out to this outdoor festival, and Satan pops up. When I say Satan, it's a man with a goat head on it, and it's not a man, but it's supposed to be the Lord Satan. And it is intense. I'm watching this and I was like, oh my Lord. I'm like, this is incredible. The movie is it's creepy, but it's made for a book. So I'm like, I'd like to read that just to see what the hell it's like, because
I've done that. Yeah. Well, sometimes, because I often find, usually I like the books better than the movie. Not always, But a lot of times, if I see a movie and I like it, I'll like, oh, I want to read that book. And or sometimes too, I've seen a movie where I thought, maybe they had kind of a premise for a good story, but just wasn't executed too well. So then I'll want to read the book to see, is the book like that, or did they try to take the book in a different direction and it just didn't work? You know what I'm saying? But
tell the audience what you told me about Godfather, because the movie to you is better than the book, right?
No, not necessarily. I think it's like a different. What I like about the Godfather, and the book, and when I said the Godfather, I'm playing 1 and 2 because they're really half of Godfather 2 is in the book.
Okay.
So it's like a different version of the same story. And I know that's people are going, well, yeah, of course, but it no, the book gives you some insight into the characters' thoughts as they're acting it out, that you don't get in the movie. But what I like, it's the same story. And so when they changed it from book to movie, they keep the story very accurately and translates to film, I think, very well. I think there are some scenes that play out well in the movie, a lot better than it does in the book. Like when Michael's going to take out Sollozzo in the diner. I mean, that just the way that's portrayed, I think, on the screen is, you just can't beat that. I'm trying to think of his name now. The guy that was buried with the fishes, Luca Brasi.
Luca Brasi, yeah.
Now they try to convey him as a really bad guy in the movie, but if you read the book, you learn things about Luca Brasi in the book. That's why Michael says at the beginning he's a very bad man. But yeah, Luca Brasi is a very bad. I mean, he's a bad man, evil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, evil, and that does not come across in the movie. So I mean, I think the movie and the book are very compatible. Just because you've seen the movie doesn't mean you don't want to read the book. And just because you read the book doesn't mean you don't want to see the movie. You, I think, have a better understanding of the story by watching the movie and reading the book. They complement each other very well.
If I remember right, I was looking it up. The show, it was on Paramount. We watch it called The Offer. It came out 2022. It's 1 season. It's a drama about the making of The Godfather. Yeah. Highly recommend it, especially how they got the actors. And if I remember right, the character Luca Brasi, that actor was actually a mobster. And it was insisted that he had that someone that he would have a part, so that they gave that part to him. That's why, remember he said Don Corleone. I sincerely hope the son is a masculine child. He had very limited lines, but apparently he was I think if I remember right, I think he was a real mobster. If you get a chance, that show, people, The Offer, it's phenomenal because it takes you not just to the movie, to the book. First thing, they got to write script from the book. That's a story in itself. But they show you how they made a movie. They show you how the entangled it was with the mob. The mob was not happy that they were being revealed in Hollywood at all. So
back then, weren't they even trying to argue that there was no mafia or something like that?
Yeah. There was the huge Italian American association that people would march. We're not having a damn movie about this made up mob. It's a wonderful show. And frankly, it's a great show about how movies are made. And, is this movie going to make money? Is this, where's the script? It's everything. So highly recommended.
I've not seen it. I need to see that, but I don't have Paramount. Good. So yeah, I don't know.
You get a week free. I think you get a week free. You can watch it in like 2 days. We
just binge it that way. Yeah.
You know what? Another, I was thinking about a movie. If I remember, Dune. Dune. So I've read the book twice. There's two
only book 1, right? You've not read
only book 1 of the 9 that came out. don't ask. I got friends who've read like all. I got one friend who's read all of them. I'm like, oh, I don't have the time. Dune 1 is amazing, but they have what's the '80s version? What is his name? The weirdo director.
Oh, he did
Lynch.
Twin Peaks, didn't he?
The David Lynch
Yeah,
version.
yeah.
So so for the audience, the David Lynch version of Dune is spot on to the book. I mean, it's word for word and line for line. And it has, to my opinion, it has some of the best parts. But I mean, that book's what, 700-800 pages, I think, maybe 600. Anyway, it's over 500.
It's a long book, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so complicated. I tell you this, Travis, that when the movie came out, the movie is so complicated, but the plot's so complicated that in the 80s, like the first week the movie came out, if you went to go see in the theater, they would give you a sheet of paper with all the names of all the tribes and words with definitions, so you could read it in the dark as you watch the movie. So yeah. So
well, I remember I saw that film in the theaters back then.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember seeing it, and
what'd you think?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in it just because I'd heard all this hype about the novel, and I had a hard time understanding what was going on in the movie.
Yeah. Well, speaking of it, I've watched that movie. I've read the book twice and watched the movie like 20 times. I think I get it now. But the last Dune that came out, oh my Lord. So David Lynch won what's 2.5 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, I think. And that's really cut down. That, to me, that gives you some of the most essential scenes of the book and glues them together in one theme. The new movie that came out, you could tell they tried to do something different. They took, in my opinion, they took non-essential scenes, i.e. the scenes that David Lynch did not cover, and they covered them. And so I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't care about these characters, because in my opinion, the Lynch movie hit all the major markers. So to me, that one that came out a couple of years ago was a huge disappointment because it tried to be the anti-Lynch. It's do things David Lynch should do, but by doing that, it really sabotaged itself. So this Dune Part 2 is coming out. I have no clue. No,
it's part 2, but it's from the first book, right?
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm not seeing the new Dune.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, I have read the book, and I can sympathize why it would be hard to make into a movie, because again, there's a lot there. This guy is building a universe, literally. There's languages, there's different people, there's tribes. That also has a lot of moving parts, and that's also very hard to follow. Yeah, and like you, I've only read the first book out of the series. It was good. I just felt like I didn't have time to want to invest in another 900-page book at that time when I got done with it. There's a lot to remember out of that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember right, at the very end of the book, you open up, there's a map of the universe. I mean, that's kind of cool. Where you create your own universe, literally create it.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
he's got quotes from a history at the beginning of each chapter too, which I thought he's got to have had. He knows where this is going already, because he's quoting the history like it's from a text at the beginning of each chapter to kind of give you a little idea of what's coming up.
So I know HBO was doing it. I'm assuming they have not stopped it. I believe there's a show called is it the Mothers of Dune or something to that effect? It takes place like 2,000 years prior to Dune, but it's about the Bene Gesserits, about the mothers
but I'm that kind of like that. Yeah, those women. His mother's one of these people.
Yeah.
The priestesses or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's probably a line to the damn book. I mean, so for him to write book 1, I mean, he probably had in his mind all 9 books or all 7 books, or or all 6. I think all 6 already preconceived. So when you write a history, it means everything else you write has to be aligned. It has to coincide with everything you've wrote previously. Crazy.
And that's hard to do too. You try to write a sequel, trying to stay true to your own storyline. That gets hard as well. There's a lot to remember. I've heard one author. Oh, go ahead.
I say, well, you could cheat like George Lucas and start at episode 4.
yeah, that could help.
How do these things happen? Hey, give me 20 years. I'll make a movie out of it.
Yeah, really. I've heard one author say that he's had like a character that he's killed off in 2 books, and he only found out he'd completely forgotten about it, but his beta readers would say, "Hey, you killed this person in the previous book." He's like done this a couple of times.
It's a dream sequence. It was a dream sequence.
Yeah, he's coming out of the shower. Yeah.
So you finished Buckethead Jed. What's it called?
Buckethead. No, old Gimlet Eye.
Oh, Gimlet Eye. Sorry.
I guess that was Smedley Butler's nickname from when he had come down. He was ill and his eyes were just all messed up, but he was still out in the field fighting. And so he got the nickname Old Gimlet Eye because apparently his eyes looked all mucked up.
Good Lord.
But I finished it, and I thought it had a stronger finish than the beginning. Maybe that's just my own mind. I had a little difficulty getting into this one, which kind of surprised me because Smedley Butler's a historical figure I was really interested in learning about. And I think I also told you that I was really wanting to learn more a little bit out of the Boxer Rebellion than what was revealed, at least through what he wrote about that. But the ending, and it might have been too that the ending gets more into current events for his times. Maybe he just remembered them more easily. But kind of similar to Oppenheimer in that it gets into a lot more political stuff towards the end of his career. As he goes from, particularly as he becomes a colonel, his career is becoming more political, or he's having to deal more with the politics and the bureaucracy of the military and of the federal government. And he obviously doesn't like that. He had seems to have some sore feelings about it, and understandably so. Yeah, he was the most senior Marine in the Marine Corps when the position for commandant came up, and he was passed over, which is something that I didn't know. Yeah. And when World War I came up, he does eventually go over to France, but he was sent over rather late for a military commander who had already had a very distinguished career and had been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And they're not putting him in combat. And he had developed a regiment. Eventually he left Haiti in 1918, and then goes to Quantico and developed a regiment, the 13th Regiment. They said was made up of some veteran marksmen, some good shots, veteran Marines, and they were sent over. And basically, the regiment was broken up, and they spent a lot of time doing guard duty and doing supplies. He, in fact, is put in charge of a base. He at least he was successful at running the base there. We're taking care of wounded soldiers, new troops that are coming in. They get off the ships. He set it up so that they would be cleaned, fed, new uniforms, and send them up to the front. But his career becomes more political at that point. And then he worked as the director of public safety in Philadelphia for a while. He was given a leave of absence from the Marine Corps. And this was to really crack down on bootleggers in Philadelphia. And he became a staunch prohibitionist during this period. He said he would have drinks before that, never been a heavy drinker, but decided to, if this is the law and they're going to enforce it, he thought then it should be done with integrity, as opposed to a wink, wink, nod, nod stuff under the table, behind the scenes kind of stuff. And this earns him a lot of political enemies in Philadelphia. And then when that's over with, in fact, he almost left the Marine Corps for that job because the mayor had said he wanted him to stay. And then he tells the mayor that, all right, I'm going to resign from the Marine Corps and we're going to really tackle this. And the mayor's like, well, no, I don't want you to stay after all, because he was planning a big New Year's Eve party. And there's a lot of graphs, there's stuff going on under the table with bootleggers and the brewers and stuff like that. And then he has more controversy out in San Diego, where he's cracking down a lot of the businesses that he said were taking advantage of enlisted sailors and Marines. And then he ends up having a court-martial an officer who was a friend of his for a public drunkenness. And this, I guess, became into a big political issue. And yeah, then ultimately, then he's actually court-martialed at the end of his career for vague charges for like behavior unbecoming of an officer and a gentleman. And oh, well, another one that was also kind of about in the same category, still kind of vague, because I didn't like, I guess, some comments that he had made about Mussolini. And now I don't know what the comments are, so I'm going to have to look that up and find out what this Mussolini incident was. But yeah, he was kind of bitter about that. At least that comes across in his rendition of the story, because he, again, this guy has 2 Congressional Medals of Honor, had been at one time was the most decorated military man in America. And then he's being court-martialed for something that he had said. And he's under house arrest. They were like interfering with him, trying to set up a defense with attorneys and this sort of thing. And he indicates that's just because of some political differences with the Hoover administration and the Secretary of the Navy, a man by the name of Adams, if I remember right. Yeah, just kind of political, bureaucratic bickering. And so they just tried to basically take him out politically, kind of getting canceled, whatever we'd call it today, something of a media lynching, trying to ruin his career, which they eventually back off from that. And then he resigns from the Marine Corps. So he did write a letter of apology. He wrote a letter of apology for embarrassing the Hoover administration, which he said he figured he could handle that because it wasn't a lie. He was sorry he'd embarrassed them, but that was as far as he would go as far as trying to accommodate them. So
Hoover too was at Boxer Rebellion. Is it
Army? That's true. Yeah. When there's not an Army captain, he's a civil engineer. He was out looking at or minor geologist. That's what he was, a geologist.
His family's out there. Yeah, but he's there during the battle, the siege of
Tientsin.
That's right. Not Peking, but Tientsin. That's right. Yeah, so he saw a lot of action. It's amazing.
As a kind of a typical progressive, he is our elite. He's out there telling the soul. A lot of the soldiers were irritated with him. He was coming around there trying to tell them how they should do their job.
But wait, he was a Republican. He was conservative.
He was. Yeah. He was. Well, not all Republicans are conservative.
Oh well, yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who it was. It's not Hoover. Coolidge was prior to Hoover, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think it was Coolidge. I heard a story once about Coolidge because my understanding is not Hoover. I believe it was Coolidge. I believe Coolidge was not a man of words. And there's a story about how there was a White House dinner, like a party, and this woman who worked at a newspaper, she was a reporter. She went up to the president and said, "Mr. President, I made a bet with my editor. I can get you to say more than 2 words." He looked at her and goes, "You lose." I always love that story. That's so witty. That's so good. I think it was Coolidge, though. Yeah. Anyway, so Hoover was in the war. Coolidge in the minimum words.
Oh, and interesting thing about talking about the Boxer Rebellion and Smedley Butler. He went back to China in the late 20s. Around 1927, when there was another Chinese uprising. So Marines are back there to protect American interests. And the town outside the Boxer village, outside of the town of Tientsin, he's put in charge of protecting that area. And the people there, he actually built some new roads for these people and actually did things to improve the city and the conditions of the people living there, that they gave them these umbrella of blessings or something. I forget the exact title, but these umbrellas, these ceremonial umbrellas, as a gesture of respect. Well, ironically, this is the same town where he had been fighting at in the Boxer Rebellion. And the people that he makes a quip is up there about how, last time I was here, Boxers were shooting at me. And I guess some of the men on the stage began to smile, and turned out they had been boxers, and now they're presenting him this award. But he said that their attitude had, by the time that they had left, that they really liked him. They liked the Marines. So
what are you reading now? Now that what's on your list now that you finished Gimlet Eye?
I want to start the I've got it behind me. Oh, the Rule of the Waves here by Arthur Herman. Yeah, so I want to start this up. And I've got another book on. Now I do have another book on the Boxer Rebellion. It's just got a basic short history on Peking in 1900.
Is that Osprey publishing?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. those are the best.
Oh yeah, they do good histories. I like their stuff. And then I also want to get into Smedley Butler's War is a Racket.
Oh,
so
yes.
I've been wanting to read that. So I thought, I purposely wanted to read the biography to find out just more about him before I get into the War is a Racket. So that's what I've got on dock here for the next couple of months.
I got to read To Rule the Waves. So you and I talking about that together. Then I got this little series called The Civil War by Shelby Foote. The book,
that little series,
1.2 million word that took him 20 years, wrote it in 54, published
you won't finish that in 48 hours.
No. Oh man, oh gosh, I'm surrounded by books. You know, it's funny. I'm looking at it right now. I have a book in there. I told you before. I haven't told the listeners this, but The Evil That Men Do. It's a movie with Charles Bronson. Yes. my childhood hero.
Yeah.
And that movie came out. I love Bronson movies. That movie really freaked me out. It's extraordinarily gritty.
Yeah.
People being tortured to death, and it takes place in Central America. Anyway, I got the book. I read the book a couple of years ago. That's a book that I wanted to really like, and I really loved the content, the story. But Travis, the first quarter of the book, the writing is atrocious. And I was going back, having to reread sentences and paragraphs like 3 or 4 times. Like, I'm like, what is he trying to say? And after
that's awkward.
Yeah. But after the first quarter, I mean, I stuck with it. It was much more smoother. But my God, that first quarter was some of the worst writing. I literally I was like, who's talking? Who's this about? You know?
I can. Now I've not read that book, but no, I can relate to that. I hate it when I can't figure. I lose track of who's speaking, and sometimes I know it's been kind of trend not to have like Bob said, John replied, stuff like that. I know. On the other hand, that does help clarify it.
I know. I mean, for our conservative friends, I have a book here. I have several books by Thomas Sowell. I have one called Decision Making. I think I read the first 10 pages. I put it down. I'm like, this is incomprehensible. I could not put it together. And his other stuff is much more clear. Maybe I need to go back and reread it now. But I just remember I literally, I usually don't put books. I'm like, nope, done. I have limited time on this earth. I'm not going to burn any more mental calories with this. I can't do it.
He's a sharp mind. So
his other books are great. I mean, especially economics, but that book, Decision Making, I just remember the beginning. I was like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I couldn't do it. But
there's some books I can't read late at night. If my brain's tired and I've been working all day, I just don't have the energy to sit and try to take on something that's really heavy or too intellectual. Those are better for maybe early in the morning if you got time.
Yeah,
drinking coffee and reading those.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of there's so many books here. I got a book you and I should read after we read Rule the Waves and everything else. The Final Cuts. That's about the making of the movie Heaven's Gate, 1980, that it destroyed an entire movie studio. It's a great. Oh,
you've told me about this. Yeah.
Oh, it's about the director. It's about the studio who hires the director of The Deer Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
That movie, wins several Academy Awards. The guy's a rock star, big shot in Hollywood. Studio gets him on, and they give him carte blanche. Why? Because he's hot shit, right?
Yeah.
Oh. I remember the scene where the movie is like 7 or 8 months late And like, we want to see a copy. We want to see we want to see what you got. Can be no longer in 2 hours. He's like, fine. He at last minute, there's a private screening. It's 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's such a great story about how, man, you give someone the power. I mean, it's about people, personalities, the business, but man, they put all their eggs in one basket. And like this guy who won these Academy Awards, if he's a success here, he'll be a success there. No, sir.
It doesn't always work that way.
No, it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he literally bankrupted the studio.
Maybe Disney will hire him.
Oh. In fact, if I remember right, Vic, when the movie came out, when Heaven's Gate first came out, which, by the way, when it came out the first week, I think they stopped all showings and brought it back to do more editing after they released it. But when the movie came out, if I remember right, there's a New York Times movie critic who said, this is like, again, I haven't read the book in years, but it was something, I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, this is the equivalent of getting a guided tour of your living room for 3 hours. It's pretty bad.
That is pretty bad. Yeah. It might be hard to keep your interest.
Yeah, a guided tour of your living room for 3 hours straight. Oh,
wasn't there like a Danish film that was like 9 hours long because it was like filmed or told in like real time? Does that ring a bell with you?
That sounds really familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that one was a big hit either, because it's hard to invest 9 hours in a movie.
I remember there's a Russian movie that came out like late 90s or early 2000s, or it was about Russia. It was like about Peter the Great. And it's a 2-hour movie, or maybe like a 2-hour movie. But if I remember right, it's all one shot. It's literally from the camera starts, and for 2 hours, it goes through the palace of Peter the Great. And every foot that the camera moves forward, there are actors, actresses, they're moving. It's like, I think it's like a 2-hour movie, and it's supposed to be one entire shot.
1917 did something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think
that's right. No. It looks like one shot because there's several scenes. It looks like continuum. Yeah, that's right. That was an intense movie.
That was an intense movie. Yeah, I liked that one.
Man, I watched last night. Speaking of books, I mean, I can watch crap and I can appreciate it because it's fun. I like The Expendables. That's a fun movie. Totally forgettable, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
But I watched, don't ask me why, but I was tired. I let sit on the couch. I played Clive Barker's Hellraiser, the first one. Okay. And you ever seen that?
I had a long time ago, like back in the 80s.
It's really creepy. I mean, it's a hell of a story, and it's very unique. I mean, the one guy escapes these demons, the Cenobite escapes the Cenobites. And the woman that he's been lusting after and had an affair with, he gets her to bring men to the house, so she kills them. And this little creepy thing that came out of the floor, it's just like, it's a heart and ribs, it eats the men, does something, and starts absorbing their body, their skeletons or organs. Oh, I mean, it slowly becomes more of a man, but you see the flesh. I mean, it's awful, but it's like, wow, that's pretty damn creative. And then it's Cenobites, all these things that put fish hooks in you. I'm like, that's what I remember, was the guy who had like these needles sticking out of his face. Pinhead. Yeah. And like, And I mean, it's just extraordinarily awful, but I gotta admire the creativity. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Mm-hmm. Not that I'd want to, but I did. But anyway, there's the book Hellraiser. It's like, I wouldn't mind. These are short stories. I wouldn't mind reading. I don't mind a little horror, like something different. Yeah, horror. I think horror stories are fun. I really like a good ghost story. Oh yeah.
Those are very good. Like I said, Stephen King's kind of had some of those. I liked his. The Haunting of Hill House. And I'm trying to think. Oh gosh, I know I've got the book around here somewhere. I'm trying to remember who it's
Murphy?
Shirley
Starts with M.
somebody.
I remember how much Stephen King really admired her.
Yeah.
Here, I'll look it up
So
right
I
now
have
on
to
my phone.
look that up because it was really, that is just a good.
Haunting of Hill House. What was her name? Because he quotes her many times.
Shirley Jackson.
Shirley
Shirley
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah. That yeah, it's one of the best ghost stories I've read. In fact, probably the most recent one too. It's not gory. By today's standard, I mean, but definitely by today's standards, there's nothing really gratuitous in it at all. But it is creepy. It's just creepy and it's dark. And no, I love that. I like a good ghost story like that better than a slasher film. I've seen some
Oh yeah.
slasher films like, all right, okay, kind of fun. But yeah, this was a book that made me, yeah, you're thinking about that for days after you finish reading it, or at least I did. Yeah, it was good. For, like I said, very, very dark, very creepy.
You know, it's not a book, but it's a movie. John Carpenter's The Fog. You
Oh
ever see
yeah.
that?
Jamie Lee Curtis was in that.
And her mom, Vivian Lee's in it.
oh, she's in that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Even sorry.
I'm trying to think of who the main or the male character was.
Oh God,
the male lead.
Atkins. He's in Halloween 3. He's in so many of Carpenter's movies. But that's it's kind of a well, it's a supernatural slasher, but it's a ghost story. If you live in the East Coast or if you live near the damn water, it's a good movie because
it's creepy. It's creepy.
Yeah, I mean, basically like pirates, ghost pirates coming and destroying a town, and it's pretty intense.
It is. Yeah.
Well, all right. So we started a little late because that was my bad. Apparently, I have to have YouTube live on my screen here right now. So I guess that's why it's running. So we did this last week. This has been a lot of fun. I think we talked a lot about books and movies. So hopefully the audience gets something out of this. What do you do?
We hit books and movies a lot. So
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And anything happening this weekend?
This weekend, well, for me, like I said, I'm going to be working on graphics for A+ content and some of the new journals that I got that came out. My Adventures in Camping journal. So
Adventures in Camping. So people go to Amazon, check out Adventures in Camping. It's really cool. That's really smart. Boy, what a way to help kids, young people start their critical thinking skills. That's great.
Yeah, well, like saying they can write about something that's that they're having a good, something that's fun, something that they've experienced. There's no right or wrong answers to something like that. You're just recalling what you've done, what you liked, why you liked it. So it's and like I said, you get it's a way to record your memories.
Totally, and you have the opportunity to make it interesting.
That's true.
That's a great thing. Show your creativity. Just don't record. I don't know. Make a theme. Make a story. Make it interesting. That'd be a good way to start being a writer.
It would. Yeah, you could. Yeah, write it. Make it sound more interesting than it really was.
Be like the government. Inflate your numbers. I saw a 6-foot raccoon. It was It was gnawing on a man's leg. I don't know. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But cool. All
right.
But
Adventures in Camping, written by Ridgeback Press.
Ridgeback. And how is Mr. Riker?
Oh, he's doing good. I think the playing at the kennel there, kind of like a dog park, like a doggy camp. Warm out. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, we will talk. We'll do it again next Friday. This is a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Having a good time.
So for the audience, remember T.S. Ransdell, The Last Marine, three-part series,
the trilogy. Yeah,
it's all on Amazon. And again, what's called camping. I'm pulling it right now.
Adventures in Camping.
Adventures in Camping. There you go.
I also got the book of answers, and also have a reading journal as well. So all written under Ridgeback Press.
Ridgeback Press. There you go, people. Amazon, check it out. All right, my friend. With that, I will let you go and we'll talk next week.
All right. Sounds good, Kevin. Have a good
Have a good one,
weekend.
buddy.
Talk
See ya.
later. Bye.
Bye.